This Soonerscoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. Don't miss a moment on or off the field. Make every day a highlight with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIKs.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Brodosovich, George Stoya here on a Friday, August 8th, around the quarter, taking some of your questions. We asked for these questions this week.
Yep.
Taking your questions about the current team. Oklahoma back on the practice field on Friday. Got a scrimmage coming up on Saturday. Have plenty of coverage on the Crimson Quarter. Good time to join Soonerscoop.com. We've had a ton of content over on Sooner Scoop between yourself and Carrie with all the pictures. Bob Brisbillo's been writing stories. We've been doing videos, it seems like almost every day, sometimes doubling up on the days. But ending the second week of the preseason and headed into the first major scrimmage coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, great time to sign up because the scrimmage on Saturday, I'm hoping to have some notes up on that, maybe even some practice notes from today's practice that just wrapped up shortly ago. So $1, like you say, 4 quarters, 10 dimes, whatever you want. That's how much it costs to sign up right now.
Kind of crazy. It's, the bunch of the sorority girls are starting to move into Dorman. It's starting to feel like the town is getting a little bit more buzz.
School starts in a couple weeks.
It's crazy to think that we're already at this point of the summer, or I guess into the fall. Before we get to the questions, there's plenty to get into. I know there's a number of questions about guys that are injured right now. Try to give you a little bit more insight on when they're going to be able to get back out onto the field. Obviously, now the injury bug hasn't necessarily bit too hard. They've had some guys that are going to be out for a while, but a bunch of minor stuff to date, knock on wood, as we enter that kind of era of the season or of the preseason. Let us first tell you about Poncho Outdoors. That is Poncho Outdoors, Poncho Outdoors.com/Soonerscoop for $10 off your first order. I have some stuff already in the mail. Carrie's already got a couple of his shirts that we showed you on Monday. Josh McQuistion, I'm sure, is going to be sporting his new gear from Poncho Outdoors. It's right out of the box, lightweight, breathes incredibly well. I know everybody's basically just melting right now with the weather outside. They also have the UPF 50 sun protection built right into the material there, the hidden ripper pocket for your phone. Two sizes, regular and slim. I'm more of a regular. George, you probably think that you're a slim, but you're probably a regular as well.
Definitely.
Free shipping and returns, free exchanges, ultimate outdoor performance shirts for men. Outdoors, PonchoOutdoors.com/Soonerscoop for $10 off. Do it. I think that do it really kind of emphasizes to do it.
Yeah.
You got that? And you got free shipping, so it should be a pretty good deal. All right, a lot to get into here. We're going to take as many questions as we saw fit here, and we'll try to run through them and give you a little bit better idea of what's going on in the Oklahoma football program headed into the regular season, starting up just 22 days away. That's wild to think. Illinois State be coming to town. All right, let's start with Xavier Robinson. Burst onto the scene a year ago, obviously has been sidelined. Mitch L. 1998. What's going on with Z-Rob's foot? How long will he be out? We were told when Barnes had his foot injury that it was nothing, turned into a 2-year ordeal until it finally got right. What say you, George Stoya?
The answer here is I don't know. I just know that he's battling a foot injury, and that it sounds like Taylor Tatum's maybe a little closer to returning than an Xavier Robinson. I don't get the sense that there's a ton of worry with Xavier. He's been suited up sometimes out of practice, just hasn't participated. So I don't know what's really going on there. It wasn't something that either one of us had heard about over the summer. So hopefully it's not serious. He's not wearing a boot or anything. So that would make you think that it's not too serious, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see.
I think the dark OU mind would go the other way and say, well, if he's not wearing a boot right now, maybe it's so bad that they're having to go without. But you would think that he would have a boot on. Yeah. And we should say that like Taylor Tatum has been out there running up and down. In fact, I think he's in like that 75-80 percentile area where he should be getting onto the field.
It's like you go from
full contact soon.
Yeah, it's like you go from you do some stretches, you're not suited up. Then you get to go do the bike right? The guy's
Sure.
on the bike, and then once you're off the bike, you get to go run around, doing sprints or cuts or whatever it is, and then you get to go back to practice.
Taylor Tatum and Jaden Ott were kind of doing the same thing, as
Yeah.
well as Caden Helms, which obviously has the broken hand, but he should be back before we blink. I would think we talked a little bit about it on the Unofficial 40 yesterday. He should be back pretty soon. I mean, if it's just as simple as a broken hand, which the whole thing sucks for him, you got to keep him on the field, but he should get the cast off at some point, I would think.
Yeah, I would assume so. I just don't know, where he broke it or how serious it is.
We've talked about a number of the safeties within the Oklahoma program. It wasn't too long ago that Payton Bowen was the heralded 5-star coming in and out of Denton Geyer. Haven't heard a whole lot about him. We talked about it a little bit on the Unofficial 40. That will be the next question here from Boomer Barney. What is going on with Payton Bowen? I don't think that I have seen a single camp note / highlight on him. And yeah, that was something that we talked about on the Unofficial 40 yesterday. It's been relatively quiet for Payton Bowen as well as quarterback Jacoby Johnson.
I think both those guys are gonna end up playing quite a bit this year. I think it's one of those things where it's not that they're having a bad camp, but in fact, I think they're probably having decent camps. I think that other guys like a Reggie Powers has made a lot of plays in practice, and guys talk about that, and he's given an opportunity. I know Payton dealt with a little bit of an injury this summer, and he's fine now. He's full go, but that opened the door for somebody like a Reggie Powers to really perform well in the spring and the summer. So I think there's a very world where Reggie Powers and Payton Bowen are on the field a lot together this year. I think that Reggie's still getting some reps at Cheetah, and I think when that happens, and maybe it's certain situations, Payton Bowen comes on the field. They still really like Payton Bowen, especially in coverage. So it's not that Payton's having a bad camp. I think it's just that other guys are making plays. And same with Jacoby Johnson. I think that young guys, Davon Jordan especially, is making a lot of plays. Cortland Guillory, as a true freshman, is making a lot of plays. Jacoby's going to play, though, because they need, it at corner.
Sure.
You got to have, 3, 4, 5 guys. And I think Jacoby is definitely in that mix right now.
Good news for that young group, and we knew going in, and that was something Brent Venables talked about at the beginning of the press conference, to kind of kick off the year was the competition, and they felt like they had pretty good depth. When you talk about the quarterback position and Cortland Guillory, I know that we'll kind of get to some of those performers here in a second, but it is good news. You're at least getting guys to come up and make plays every day at practice.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing is, like, it's not that guys aren't playing well. It's like be happy that other guys are playing well enough that they're being talked about.
That's the glass half full look at it. I guess you could look at it on the other side, that the veteran guys, are they getting outperformed? Is that a problem? And we won't probably get to that bridge until we absolutely have to cross it.
I would also say it's been 1 week of practice.
Sure.
Let's see what happens in the scrimmage tomorrow, because that's where the guys like Payton Bowen could out there and have a great scrimmage, and all of a sudden he's going to be the guy starting at strong safety. So I think that tomorrow is a really big day for us to kind of understand where certain guys are at.
We've been out to practice now 3 times here over the first week and a half, if you will, of preseason practice. So we get a little bit more of a up-close look at it, which I kind of enjoy this next question in terms of best cusser out at practice. Sooner Banger wants to know, who is the best cusser at OU practices? Which coach really brings it? Bonus points for creativity. Pretty hard to beat Nate Dreiling from what I've seen.
Nate Dreiling's number one. I think Kuzieski's up there.
Yeah, he coaches hard.
He coaches very hard. Bill Beatenbow.
I think we're so conditioned to going out there and seeing Bill
it's
lose
just like
his mind sometimes.
It's natural. Like, it doesn't even, it's in 1 year out the other, because you've heard it so many times. But like Carrie said, natural intimidation, like, it's not even, it's just part of the, vocabulary.
Nate Dreiling would be number one on my power ranking so far.
He's intense, man.
I don't think we've ever really seen like Brent let it go on anybody. We haven't been out there when that has happened. Now
he's intense.
Haven't been in like team settings. It's more individual and that kind of stuff.
DeMarco too. You go over to
DeMarco does it, and you just want to crawl into a hole with the guy that he's.
Yes.
It's like,
and he'll just drop an F-bomb in there. Mid sentence, you're like, oh, okay.
DeMarco brings it a little bit heavier though.
Yes.
It's like it's always somebody's kind of the subject of ridicule,
and sometimes it's like a
criticism.
It's like a walk-on. You're like, damn.
There was some video that our guy Andrew West got that I was going through, and Nate Dreiling was giving it to Barrett Travis, the walk-on linebacker from Heritage Hall, and I was like, man, that's kind of awesome, but it sure sucks to be in that moment if you're Barrett Travis. All right, let's go to kind of predicting the future here. Captain Justice wants to know, name the top guy you were not thinking about as camp started that you now expect to start or play a massive role? The biggest surprise contributor. First name that kind of pops into my brain is somebody that's kind of been one of the top performers through camp. Keontez Lewis, would that fit the bill?
I think Keontez Lewis on offense is certainly somebody that is. It's not that we weren't thinking about him. It was more so like there's other guys that we were talking about. The guy for me, I think on the entire team is Davon Jordan.
Yeah,
we did not talk about him at all. I mean, it was constantly.
He was one of those
even
guys that
Cortland Guillory we were talking about more than a Davon Jordan.
Davon Jordan was somebody that kind of got out last year, and it was like, okay, he got thrown out there being a freshman, and now it's. I think he's one of the names that always comes up when we're talking about the quarterback position.
There's a chance. I'm not going to say it yet, but it would not surprise me at all if he's one of the corners that runs out there first for Oklahoma.
Interesting. That would be an upset coming out of like the position battles that we talked about at the beginning of the preseason. Still just 7 practices in now, with today being the 7th practice in Norman. But yeah, Reggie Powers qualifies is what Carey says.
Reggie definitely came to mind, but I thought Reggie would play a role. I didn't think it'd be.
It's like you had him
safety.
Up here, and he's met those expectations, right?
And we've talked about that safety, those young safeties, like they're gonna make a big leap, But Davon Jordan's a guy that I would honestly say, like, even back in the spring, it's like, you just forgot. You forgot he even was on the team, and now all of a sudden it's like, he could start at corner.
He might be honorable mention right now, but I would also probably throw in somebody like a Jaren Canic at tight end.
Yep.
That, okay, is this a realistic situation that he's going to be able to be a contributor? And Carey reminds us, a guy that we never talk about. It's going to be never talked about, insert his name, but Jeremiah Newcomb continues to make plays. Cortland Guillory noted him on Wednesday when
Jeremiah
we were talking
Newcomb,
to players.
He broke down the team today before practice, and that's usually a sign that guy is performing well. We saw Keontez Lewis do it. I think it was on Wednesday.
When we were out there.
So it's usually a sign of guys that have earned some respect in camp.
We've noted this on a couple of the shows that we did. I think maybe even coming out of we talked about it on the Unofficial 40, I know, but we've talked about it here on YouTube as well, in talking about the differences in camp. And it's been not completely different from what we've seen, but there are some changes. Jacob Jordan and Joyer, shout out South Lake Carroll. What are the biggest differences you have noticed in practice this fall camp compared to practice last year during fall camp? I would just say like the format of what they're doing and some of the stuff that we're able to see now. That could be something that Ben Arbuckle's brought in from an offensive perspective. He wants to go over plays at the beginning of practice, a little bit of a walkthrough, really. That's something new that we hadn't seen before. Yeah,
I would say the format to some degree, and some of that is, again, we don't know what really goes on. We've definitely gotten more access this year than last year. Like, that's one of the things.
Doesn't it seem like they're doing a little bit more live ball stuff? And Brent talked about that a little bit on Wednesday. Of there's almost an element of surprise that they just throw in, and okay, let's see how these guys perform when the quote unquote the lights come on, or
like the perimeter drill they did the other day when we were out there. We've never seen them do that drill. The inside drill that they did a week ago, which I think they do that pretty often. We've never seen it. So little things like that. And then I would just say, the offensive coaches, at least the new guys, Arbuckle, Kuzieski, they're just much more vocal than the previous staff, and it's pretty noticeable when you get out there and you just kind of watch how the quarterbacks operate. It's night and day from what it was a year ago.
No doubt about it. We highlighted Jaren Canic on the program on Thursday. Michael Jald wants to know, I was a bit surprised by how highly Kendall Daniels spoke of Canic in his interview. You can see that here on the Sutter Scoop YouTube channel from Thursday. Does this change your opinion of how impactful Canic can be this season? And maybe not changes my complete opinion about it, but it does offer this idea, and I think I'm cheering for it a little bit, that maybe Jaren can carve out a role for himself at the tight end position.
Well, you definitely kind of like perk up when you hear that, right? You're like, wait a second. He said, what about Jaren Canic? And for those that didn't see, you can see what he said on yesterday's practice report.
And it's not one of those like, that's my boy, I've grown up with him, we were roommates freshman year type of deal.
He just was like, Jaren Canic's played extremely well, and basically listed all the reasons why he thinks he's a good tight end. And that's coming from a guy in Kendall Daniels that's played a lot of college football, has had to guard a lot of tight ends at his position at Oklahoma State. So it's pretty high praise and makes you go, okay, maybe there is something there with Jaren Canic. It's still, though, for me at least, let me see it on the field.
Sure.
What role is he going to be in? What does Ben Arbuckle see for somebody like a Canic? That to me is when we'll really know. I do think that they'll try to carve out something for him. I was going to ask you this the other day, Eddie. Over under a half touchdown for Jaren Canic this year.
I'd go over.
I'd go over too. I think he's definitely going to get in the end zone.
I mean, he would have came up, a half touchdown short last year? He found the end zone on special teams?
Yeah, so I guess he did score.
He had the one. Oh, you're saying a half.
Half.
Just I'd say over.
Score once.
I'd say over.
Yeah.
They might set it at 1.5 coming in with one career touchdown for Jaren Canic. I think this guy right here too.
Carson
If
Canic.
you're talking about guys that have kind of created a little bit of momentum for themselves at the tight end position, it seems like Carson Kent's going to be one of those guys, and especially in the pass reception game.
I think he's probably their best pass catcher right now, and that's what he did best at Kennesaw State. So I think they'll find ways to maybe get him the ball. Again, it's just one of those things. I just don't know what Arbuckle is going to do. You know, he's going to tailor his offense to the skill set he has. That was a great grab by Canic. Was that in the spring?
Yeah, that was from the spring.
But I don't know. The tight end position is such an unknown because you just don't know how much Arbuckle's going to use it.
As much as the stuff that we've seen, at least, and they've worked a ton on that red zone stuff. And when we were out there, Ben Arbuckle talked about how important that phase of the game is going to be. It makes me think that maybe you can find, and especially somebody like a Will Huggins with his big frame, be able to be a little bit of an easier outlet for John Mateer. Speaking of John Mateer, there's a question here from Moneyball. John Mateer passed for 3,100 yards last year. Will he eclipse 3,000 once again this season?
That's a good question. I meant to look up before we did this how many quarterbacks in the SEC did that
for
last
3,000?
year. Yeah. But I'm going to say yes. I think he will, just because you look at the success he had at Washington State, the receiving core he has here, you know, his third year now playing in the Arbuckle system, second year as the starter. I do think that he'll throw for a lot of yards, and I also think that'll be, well, I don't know. This is tough, Eddie, because I was just about to say that's going to be the strength. There's 5
SEC quarterbacks threw for 3,000 plus yards last year. Jalen Milroe just short, 2,880 or 844. Taylor Green, Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, Garrett Nussmeier, Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart led the SEC in passing, 4,279 yards.
I was just about to say that's interesting that there was only 5. So that makes me I might say under, just because the strength of this football team, I think, is going to end up maybe being the running game. If they can stay healthy, getting the ball to Jaden Ott, running Mateer, who obviously is a very good runner, having, you know, a wealth of guys in terms of Javonte Barnes, Xavier Robinson, if they can all stay healthy, I wonder if they're more of a running team, but we'll see.
Just for perspective, do you know, just off the top of your head, what Jackson Arnold threw for last year?
Wasn't it like 800 or 1,000?
It's a lot more than I would have guessed.
Really?
1,421
Yeah,
yards
that is
in
more than
2024.
I would have said like right around 1,000.
Michael Hawkins, 783. So you're about, 2,200 yards between Oklahoma passing last year. All right, we continue on. Big question. Everybody wants to know. Medical team situation. Obviously, there's been the talk of the camp a little bit. Hypoflex wants to know, can you give us some insight on how the medical team decision-making may have changed from last year or after last year, or at least what you believe they were aiming to change if you do not know that info? I mean, I would say as a whole, they went out and hired somebody to run the entire thing differently, right?
Yeah, I think, because, look, we don't know what exactly they're doing differently in terms of rehab, or if they're holding guys out longer, or all of those things. Like, we don't have the answer to that, and I don't think we ever will.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't think Brent is really wanting to talk about that kind of stuff, but I can tell you what they did was, or the focus of this new medical staff was getting guys back to playing. And I think that's been the biggest emphasis, is trying to get guys where they actually return to the sport, or at least return to the field for Oklahoma. And we saw that last year. It was like guys got hurt and they never came back. And
Sure.
I think that's why there's been such an emphasis put on the return to play trainer, as well as, Jonathan Gress. He was a professional in basically rehab in the NFL. So that has kind of been what they're focused on. I don't know what that means for fall camp. There's a lot of things too. Like, are they changing practice in terms of the physicality to try to prevent injuries? I don't know. Like, all that stuff it's hard to say. And at the same time, I hate to say it's football and injuries happen, but that's also somewhat the truth.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle. Most likely when you're talking about medical injuries, and it's pretty hard to really kind of pinpoint what has been different. But I don't know. They say it's different.
Yeah,
they took a poll of the team last year and they made changes. They have made changes, so we'll see. Obviously, we're going to have to, it's a small sample size. There's 7 practices in.
Yeah.
Going to probably have to check back in January to see, like, okay, was this a better operation from a injury standpoint and keeping guys on the field and getting them back, most importantly, onto the field after they get hurt. And, for Kendall Dolby, it's like, that was one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen on the OU football field at Owen Field.
Yeah.
It was bad.
You got to avoid those, but it's also like, Kendall Dolby got rolled up. Like, what are you supposed to do?
Sure. Same with like Giovanni Gibson going back to the spring. It's not much you can do. You can't not practice.
You can hire the best doctor in the world, and they're not going to be able to prevent that play from happening.
Could be Big Dairy. You never know. All right, let's talk breakout stars, because I think that when you have talked about a Reggie Powers, or you're talking about a Michael Boganowski, or you flip over on the other side of the ball, plenty of options on the offensive side. 3 breakout stars on each side of the ball who weren't starters last season, and not including obvious high-profile transfer portal players like a John Mateer, like a Jaden Knott, like a Derek Simmons, or a Marvin Jones Jr., or a Kendall Daniels. You're taking some of the good picks away.
Gosh, that's tough. Who weren't high-profile? I mean, Davon Jordan.
Sure.
Is one on defense. Reggie Powers. You mentioned some of those guys. I'm trying to think of somebody on offense.
I mean, would Taylor Wine be a breakout option on the defensive side of the ball?
I feel like that didn't register because we've talked so much about him now the last month or so because his name keeps coming up. But I think he certainly factors into that. I'm thinking an offense. I think you could take your pick in the tight end room.
Sure.
Carson Kent, Jaron Canic, any of those guys. Eddie Pierre-Louis. I don't know if that's I think we all kind of saw in the spring him getting those first team reps. I think he's certainly in that category of he could be a breakout player on that offensive line. I think
you wrote about him on Friday. You can read on Soonerscoop.com just about Eddie Pierre. I know we're going to have something more with him here in a second. Isaiah Satania, Keontae Lewis, as you see on screen here, both of those guys have certainly not solidified themselves by any means, but I do think that it's been a positive that we've been able to come in here and talk about practice reports and say, yeah, they're contributing, they're producing, and they're doing exactly what I think Jim Nagy and company thought they were going to do when they brought them in. And obviously some of these guys came in during the spring. It's going to be super interesting to see how it kind of all unfolds for John Mateer on the offensive side of the ball. There's Reggie Powers right there. He's been exceptional here through the first couple of weeks of preseason practice. So we'll see. Let's stay on the offensive line because there was a question about Eddie Pierre-Louis. We talked about him here just shortly. We talked about him on Wednesday. We talked to him after practice and just kind of getting his feet a little bit more wet from what he saw a season ago. Phoenix fires Suter. Is EPL going to start? Pretty simple question, and you wrote about it on Friday.
Yes, I do think he's going to start. Again, it's 1 week into practice. We'll have to see how it plays out. But barring injury, he feels like a guy that is having a really solid camp, was really good in the spring. Brent Venables, spoke about him at the media day and was basically like, we wanted to play him more last year, but he didn't come in till the summer.
Sure.
It wasn't mentally clicking for him yet. And we saw when he got in there, he played well at times and he also had some freshman mistakes, but I think having an entire season under his belt where he played, I think it was like 60, 70 snaps last year, but having that whole season, you get to go through the whole spring, winter workouts, all of that, summer, and he gets to do it with the first group. Like, that's the other thing is like Heath Ozida being out, I think only helped Eddie Pierre-Louis have more of an opportunity, obviously, at that left guard spot. So I do think he's going to start. In talking to some people, he's been one of their best linemen so far through camp.
Has that nasty. I think everybody kind of fell in love with him when he came into the main game, picks up a personal foul. And it's like, as bad as things have gone.
Orlando Brown. Remember was that his redshirt freshman year and he was getting personal fouls all the time? It's like, you can live with that.
You can live with it. You can tell him to, I think Skip Johnson always talks about, you can say, you don't want to have to say giddy up. You can tell him to whoa a little bit. So we'll see. Love that. He needs to wear the glasses underneath the helmet, though. That would be badass if he was doing that. We've talked a ton about John Mateer. Not trying to delve into any type of bad voodoo, but what about Michael Hawkins? Sooner Stud wants to know, how is Hawkins performing? Any indication on how much Arbuckle trusts him to take over next season? I don't know if the latter side of that, I simply don't know yet, but haven't heard anything bad. And, small sample size once again. But when we've gone out there to some of the one-on-one stuff that you've seen here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel, it's Michael Hawkins that's been making some of the throws.
Yeah, I think that he's had a really good camp. Talking to some people, he has really improved, I think, some of his decision-making. And what I mean by that is not putting the ball in harm's way, but making quicker decisions. Because I think one thing we saw with him last year as a freshman is sometimes he'd get a little antsy and his feet, and part of that was the offensive line's fault.
I could see where he's coming from.
Yeah, but I think also he was quick to, first read, if not, I'm running. And I think that was fair last year. I think that this new coaching staff has really worked with him on, getting through his reads, making decisions, pushing the ball down the field, all of those sorts of things. And it sounds like you can tell a noticeable difference. And that's the benefit of having a real quarterbacks coach.
I was going to say,
last year he didn't really get a whole lot of coaching.
Having Kuzieski out there, it certainly seems like this is kind of run of the bill for John Mateer. He's been with him for the last couple of years. We'll probably talk to Michael Hawkins at some point here during the preseason. Yeah. I would have to think that that's going to be something that's going to come up. Just going through the spring, getting some direction from somebody that,
and even from a guy like John Mateer.
Sure.
Learning from somebody like that who's done it at a high level, I'm sure that's all a benefit for Michael Hawkins.
No doubt about it. It all does sound positive, though. And, God forbid something were to happen to QB1. You feel like you have somebody that at least has experience and will be able to perform, maybe not at the level that John Mateer does or the knowledge of the offense, but you do think that you feel pretty comfortable if worse came to worse there.
For sure. I think he's certainly
backup
somebody.
Quarterback situation. Yep. All right, let's talk Jericho Carter, because he's a guy that certainly has kind of burst onto the scene. Nobody really knew a whole lot about him. O. Thompson Sooner. How has Jericho Carter been? Will he push for playing time? I think it's a pretty obvious yes on that.
Yeah, he's definitely going to push for some playing time. I think for him, first couple practices, it was just trying to get a grasp of what they're asking him to do. But I will say the last couple practices, especially this week, he's performed pretty well. He's made some plays. He's getting some opportunities, with the first and second team, which is great. And so I think he also offers something that some other guys in that room don't, which is a lot of size. Mm-hmm. This is a guy, he's not thick like Giovanni Gibson is, but he's certainly tall and has a long catch radius. So I think they do like him a lot. I do think he's going to push for playing time. Is he going to be the team's leading receiver? I wouldn't count on that. Maybe he could surprise us all. I think he's got some really good speed too in the open space, but I do think as fall camp has gone on, he's somebody that is continuing, because again, he wasn't here in the spring. He's got some catching up to do. And it does sound like, though, that he has a chance to play quite a bit this year.
He's one of those guys that has taken a lot of individual coaching. I've noticed when we've been out there. Kevin Wilson spent a lot of time with him. I think it was on Monday when we were out there, or I guess it would have been last Friday when we were out there at that first practice. Yeah. Certainly, it seems like as they've gotten into camp, though, you've heard his name a little bit more on the back end than you did at the beginning.
You have to remember with some of these guys, especially somebody like a Giovanni Gibson or Jericho Carter, who come from these really small schools. You're talking about UAPB, which is a very small school, an HBCU, and then McNeese State for Jericho Carter. I mean, these aren't very big programs. So all that little extra coaching, that's probably not a lot of stuff they were getting at some of the smaller schools. And also they probably weren't playing in the most complex of offenses. So they've got a lot to pick up. But I do think that their athleticism, their size, those sorts of things are certainly stuff that Oklahoma really likes.
Because Jaden Jackson was so phenomenal a year ago as a true freshman, obviously making the start in the opener, becoming an All-American as a freshman, it probably overshadowed a little bit of what Eli Bowen was able to accomplish. Next question here is, in terms of the quarterback position, Fly the W Boomer, must be a Cubs fan, big series with St. Louis this weekend. Who is a young play? One team is in the playoffs, the other not so much. We know who we're talking about. I'm dying here. Who is a young player who we won't see much of until October, but will be a key contributor by November? thinking somebody like an Eli Bowen was last year for Oklahoma, really coming on strong at the end of the season.
I think someone like an Elijah Thomas could fall into that category. I know there's a lot of people that want him to start day one. I don't think he's there yet. I think that we could see him.
What about a Michael Fasusi?
Michael Fasusi, I think, is in that category where early in the season he may not start, but if you told me we look up and it's the LSU game, last game of the season, and Michael Fasusi and Elijah Thomas are key parts of this offense, that would not surprise me at all. I think defensively, I'm trying to think of somebody maybe like a Danny Okoye.
Sure.
I think
get his feet wet early and then start building a little bit more confidence.
The defense is there's a little bit more depth on the defense, so I think it's
easier
harder
to see some guys filling in on the offensive side, right?
And I'm trying to think of freshmen on defense that could end up playing, and I just other than Cortland Guillory,
right?
I mean, maybe a Malik Hawkins. That wouldn't surprise me if there's some injuries in that room, or if Malik just gets an opportunity. I think he's a really smart player. So yeah, I think Guillory too could be in that same category. I don't know if he's going to start or play a whole lot early in the season, but if you told me by the end of the year he's starting for Oklahoma, I don't think that'd surprise me.
Probably thinking somebody like a Marcus James is going to be headed for a redshirt season, but from a physical standpoint,
maybe special teams, he could play special teams.
or if God forbid somebody were to get hurt in that linebacker core with the depth that we feel good about on that front line, but maybe not so much on the back end. Maybe he would be able to fill into some type of role. But I mean, it's really hard to project that. And, I think even with somebody like an Eli Bowen, there were steps that had to unfortunately happen for Oklahoma for them to get that opportunity. It's about kind of running with that opportunity when you do get presented it. So we'll see. All right, let's talk offensive line. We talked about Eddie Pierre-Louis for a second. WC360 wants to know, can you tell if they have a firm O-line starting rotation yet, or is it still a work in progress, George? And we know that Bill Beatabo, somebody that he tinkers throughout the non-conference schedule, but when you have that Michigan game, you sure would like to have something solidified.
I think it's... If they played this weekend, it would be like tomorrow when they scrimmage. The starting offensive line will be Jacob Sexton, Eddie Pierre-Louis, Troy Everett, Fabechi Wiwu, and then depending on who's healthy, either Luke Baklenko, Derek Simmons, or Jake Taylor at right tackle.
Just to clarify, that's from left to right.
Yes,
Jake on the left, and then so on.
So, but I do think that the door is open for if a Michael Fasusi, if it starts to click at left tackle, it wouldn't surprise me if he did, start. I do think the interior is pretty much set in stone. I feel comfortable in saying, when they run out there for Illinois State, it's going to be Troy Everett, Eddie Pierre-Louis, and Fabechi Wiwu as your interior. I think it's the tackles that maybe there's some room in some of that at right. Like if Derek Simmons were healthy, I would say he is definitely their starting right tackle. We just kind of have to see, concussions and that kind of stuff can take some time. And you got to be cautious with those. So I don't know. I think it's the answer is somewhere in between.
Right.
That. So
and talking to Josh yesterday on the Unofficial 40, he had heard some good things about Ryan Foje.
Yep.
Another one of the freshmen.
I think he's pushing. I just get the sense that they still like Fabechi there at right guard, at least for now. And how we've seen this before with Bill. He's been coaching for a long time. He likes his older guys. He likes the guys that are experienced, and that's what he's going to roll with early in the season.
A lot of trust.
It's not till partway through the year that you start seeing some of those younger guys make a move.
One more to get to before we get out of here for the weekend. Oklahoma heading into a scrimmage on Saturday. This one about myself. Cam Shamrock. Do they plan on letting Eddie receive kickoffs? Well, yeah, I'll be down there. I'll be down there and I'll be ready.
How much did you catch last year?
I don't think that there were too many times that OU was kicking off in a good situation.
You didn't catch any away kickoffs?
No, I don't think so, because I'm not in that end zone.
Yeah,
because I'm always in the end zone where OU's going towards, so it's hard to catch the other teams. But
so you didn't catch any last year?
I don't think so. There was one that came right in front of me, and one of the ball boys, I can't remember who it was, came in just snatched it. It was like one of those cartoons.
Oh, man.
Snatched it right out of my hands. But I'll be ready for it. I had a good offseason, and I think that, you never know. I think you're going to have a lot. I might take off.
I think you'll have a lot of opportunities in the first game. I've said it on here. I think OU's going to try and score a ton of points against Illinois State, so I think you'll have several opportunities.
Just a 35-point favorite right now. You know what?
35?
FCS came out with their top 10 rankings.
Where are they?
Illinois State was number 8. in the FCS.
I saw they had a couple FCS All-Americans.
Yeah.
Or they were like second or third team.
I certainly don't think it should be a name your score. Don't get me wrong. But I do think it, from an FCS level and from like a quote-unquote warm-up game, they're not a...
I do wonder, do you think OU beats Illinois State by more or Kent State? Because Kent State's bad.
Kent State is bad, and they have a new coach.
They might be the worst team in the FBS.
I think OU will probably be a bigger favorite against Kent State than they will be in the opener. But that's also opener. You never know how.
Those FCS teams, too, especially the highly ranked ones, are usually pretty well coached.
You certainly don't want to be the Appalachian State, Michigan of the world. Speaking of Michigan. All right, that's going to do it for this week's Around the Quarter. We will be back next week. We'll cook something up. Yep. Make sure that you are logged into Soonerscoop.com. You join Soonerscoop.com and tell everybody else out there. I know that we've been growing here on the YouTube page. Tell everybody about Soonerscoop.com's YouTube channel and us idiots that are here daily. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you next time.